My name is Scott Payne. I served in the FBI for 23 years as an undercover agent. I infiltrated biker gangs, the KKK, and America's neo-Nazis. And this is everything I'm authorized to tell you. We were all worried about my safety. We had quick response teams, but the bottom line is if I'm in the middle of 100 acres and the crap hits the fan, what are you gonna do for me other than avenge my death unless I take care of it on my own? So, that's kind of that undercover mentality. If you're only going in because you're expecting 3 SWAT teams and HRT to be there for you, you probably shouldn't go in. There was an opportunity to do the Outlaws Motorcycle Club in Massachusetts, out of the Boston office. My game plan was to just go in cold. I think I went into the Outlaws case around July of 2005. Taunton, Massachusetts was what we were going after. They had pretty good intelligence. I'm like, hey, what do you know? And they were like, they showed me, hey, this guy right here, he loves to be surrounded by big guys. He loves to be the center of attention. So they had that down. And I'm like, okay, cool. That lets me know, all right, I can be me. We knew that they frequented a strip club. And for those that don't know, in the biker world, you have a mandatory meeting every week, and that's called church. And depending on the club and the chapter, sometimes that's where you talk about your criminal activity. You cut your phones off, airplane mode, leave them outside, go inside, and that's all ways to thwart being infiltrated, to thwart law enforcement detection. I kind of made some stops at that bar when they weren't there and, kind of got to know the crowd a little bit. And then one night when we're ready to swing for the fences, the surveillance is like, hey, they're leaving, they're on their way there. I'm already at the bar. I'm like, cool. I had asked them, I'm like, hey, can they wear their colors in the bar? And they're like, no, we don't believe they can wear them in the bar. And I go, oh, well, that's good. That's an advantage for me because now I'm just a tattooed dude drinking, staring at half-dressed women, listening to rock and roll, and so was that guy. But that part of the intelligence was wrong. So I'm in there and I'm on one side of the bar and here comes about, 12, 13 outlaws, all with their colors on, and they take the whole back section of the bar. Well, that changes any kind of approach for me, right? I mean, what do? Do you walk up and go, hey, especially this accent in Massachusetts, come on. But you walk up and go, hey, you boys like to ride? I'm probably getting smacked at the minimum, right? So I just started being me, trying to ingratiate, just getting to know some of the outlaws, just shooting the shit, guys at a bar. And then they had somebody kind of check me out in the bathroom. That was a little weird. This big jack dude named Scott Payne, who I got to befriend and know very, very well through that case. Door swings open, and here he is, barrel-chested, big muscles, and then I see him eyeballing me and start to walk up. So for that split second, I'm thinking, I'm getting jacked. He's probably gonna slam me or something. I'm just ready, preparing for anything. Well, he starts questioning me about where I've been, this, that, and the other. Don't bluff, because I did throw out some stuff. McAllen, Texas. He'd been to Brownsville. Greenville, South Carolina. He'd been to Spartanburg. He knew all the places I was talking. So had I been bluffing and not knowing what I was talking about, I probably could have blown it right then and there. For protection and safety, I got me. I don't have a gun. I'm pretty sure I wasn't even wired that night because me personally, I don't like to be wired in the beginning. I mean, if we would have started fighting, it's just been me fighting, Hopefully a cover team can hear me. You should have a cover team on you if you're out. A cover team would be like my case team, but they're a response team. You might have multiple response teams and they may do shifts. But for the outlaw case, it was basically me for the 2 years. It was basically me, the case agent, FBI case agent, who was a friend of mine, Massachusetts State Trooper, task force officer, and it was a Brockton PD detective. And we had a DEA counterpart, but for the most part, it was those 2 task force officers, the agent, and me. Sometimes gaining trust from somebody takes a long time, but I just started hanging. And that night, that first night I bumped them, they invited me to their Northeast Regional meet, which was called the Lobster Fest. I made sure I came back for that and started meeting more people. And I was just hanging around, But, what is a country guy doing in Massachusetts? I'm gonna have to have a reason that's believable. I said I was a site survey specialist because I grew up landscaping And I started looking for something that I felt comfortable talking about and being able to do for a living. But eventually I start letting it be known that I'm not just a legit businessman. I do some criminal activity too. And then I started doing some things. What it turned in for them was, in the beginning, they would report vehicles stolen. They would get their own insurance money. I would buy those vehicles off of them at a stolen price. And what they believed is that I was moving them to Mexico. And then we start gaining more trust because we're hanging more and they're learning more about me and I'm learning more about them. And then it becomes, hey, we just carjacked somebody. So now they're saying, Tex, we got a hot car. We need to get rid of it. I'm like, okay, I'll get rid of it. So take that one. I started dropping breadcrumbs about the fact that I did used to be in the dope game. And I did have contacts in the cartel, but I got out of it because some of my boys got locked up and the heat was getting too close. In the Outlaws case, there wasn't a part where I was going to get taken down, but there were several times during that case I did get stopped by law enforcement as our team's surveilling me, and I'm getting questioned with outlaws in my car, and I'm getting browbeat by a state trooper, and I've got to stay in roll and hopefully not go to jail, you know, kind of thing. So if that would have happened on a case like that, I'd just go to jail. I wouldn't break cover. I'd let somebody come bail me out and we'll figure it out after that. But hell, it might even bolster my reputation with the outlaws, you know. The biggest lick we came as a year and a half into the case. I'd laid out that I was actually involved in the drug game, and we did a deal where we had a load of dope transferred to another vehicle. So we ended up doing 40 kilos of real cocaine, 1,000 pounds of real weed. What they thought was it was a drug crew selling it to another drug crew, and they got paid for helping protect it. But the big issue in that case that most people like to talk about is the night before the op was supposed to happen, Joe Doggs, who was the president of the Taunton chapter, said, hey man, I want you to come over to the clubhouse. They were having church, that meeting I was talking about. And Clothesline, the enforcer, who's supposed to be my good buddy, says, hey Tex, you got a minute? And I said, yeah. I'd been in that clubhouse umpteen times, man. Who knows how many. There's only one door I'd never been in, and that's the door he opened. And we went down a tight stairwell to a basement. But I'm being generous when I say basement. Northeastern home, split level, more like a cellar. You know, I couldn't stand up straight. I mean, I'm 6'4", and I could probably touch the wall on both sides. Well, they brandished their weapons. And he's got me down there, and I just walking down into that dark, tight area, one outlaw in front of me, one behind me, I'm like, something's not good, man. This is not good. And everything starts slowing down in your head because you're having an adrenaline dump. He walks me down there and he says, hey, there's a lot of going on. It's my job to protect my brothers. I need you to take all your clothes off. I need you to write down your full name, your address, your kids' names, your wife's name, and I start gold bricks at that point. I'm like, oh, hell. Because being stripped in a basement at gunpoint is not a big deal if you're not wired. You're just naked. It's uncomfortable. It's cold. When you're wired, it's a big deal. And I went to write my name down, Scott Calloway, and I couldn't remember my middle name. It's because I was having an adrenaline dump. I couldn't remember nothing. Everything I'm having the auditory exclusion. Everything's going woof, woof, real slow. You can feel your heart beating. Your hamstrings get rubbery. And I was trying to remember. I was going Scott Calloway, Scott Joseph Calloway, and I'm like, nope, that wasn't my middle name. That was another alias. And I'm just going through this Rolodex in my mind. And then I do something that we train. I had no idea I did it though. And it's basically a distraction technique, but it's also me trying to get information. Must have been my subconscious doing it, right? And I say, what else do you need? And he says, what? And I'm like, my name and what else? Then I hear them yell up to a probate and say, hey, what else do you need for that website? So now I'm doing active listening. I'm like, oh, okay. I'm gathering intel. I'm like, okay, they're gonna Google search me. Back then there was a huge thing called whosarat.com. You can go on that. Anybody that was like locals that get popped, if they can ID the narc and put a picture, they put it on whosarat.com. I took my jacket, my shirt off, I took my boots off, and I dropped my pants and underwear down around my ankles. And I did remember my middle name finally, and I wrote that down. But the whole time I'm doing things that we teach. I'm like, I'm talking, I'm looking at clothesline, and I'm like, I didn't say it, but my eyes were saying, tell me everything's gonna be okay. What the hell's going on? I looked for plastic. If I'd have seen plastic on the floor, I probably would have tried to fight my way out of it, but I mean, what the hell could I have done? I don't care how tough you are. 13 outlaws, you're downstairs, you gotta get upstairs, get out the door. So I'm talking. But in his look, he's kind of looking back, and he says, at one point he tells me, he goes, trust me, man, if somebody accused me of being a Fed, I'd smash him in the mouth. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not happy. That was true. I was not happy. And he said, I wouldn't be either. So I think we're done. Then he grabs a piece of clothing and he says, hey, I'm not gonna find anything in here I don't want to, right? Like some naked pictures of my old lady. And he laughs. He goes, my laugh's like this. Because, without giving too much away, there was something in that piece of clothing. And he starts kneading it. He starts looking at it, and he's going over this whole piece of clothing. And he looks right at it, but doesn't see it. And I pass. And we immediately go back into business. Now, several things to be learned from that. A lot of people ask me, what would you have said if he would have found it? And to this day, I remember it like it was yesterday. I got two responses. One would have been to buy myself some time. If he'd have said, what is this? I would have said, I don't know, some naked pictures of your old lady, because he already threw that bone. The only other line I had was, the gig is up. I'm an undercover FBI agent. I can walk out of here and we can see each other in court, or all hell's gonna break loose. However, that would have been a bluff on my part, because to my knowledge, every time I was in that clubhouse, the cover team really couldn't hear me. That night when I turned in my equipment to the case team, what I found out was Sergeant Higginbottom, Higgy, was the Massachusetts State Trooper, and Joe was the Brockton police guy. That first exchange between me and Joe Doggs at the door made their spidey senses go off. Or if you're me and you're a believer, it's the Holy Spirit talking to you, divine intervention. What Higgy and Joe did is they suited up, vest and everything, ready to respond. But because they knew how fortified that door was on the clubhouse, the cinder block wall around it, their plan was to drive the vehicle into the cinder block wall to breach it there, because it would be easier, in their opinion, to breach that door. I can't tell you how many people in my law enforcement career, or even today, that I would know and I'd say they would have pulled the trigger. They would have went in there, they wouldn't have waited, but Higgy and Joe knew me enough to listen to my voice, and I was in control enough to where they didn't, and we passed the test. The case was very successful. I will tell you, there's a whole nother side to that 3-year period. I had been going at a pace for 3 years where I'd stopped taking care of myself. I'm a workaholic. So in order to work these cases, I would take my days off. I would be undercover in Oklahoma over the weekend, come back, not take a day off, go right back to work, because I wanted to make my bosses happy in McAllen so I could go do the undercovers and be on SWAT and do all this other stuff I was doing. And it eventually caught up to me. By the time the case was ending, I was a zombie. I was on antihistamines, decongestants. I was taking hydroxy cuts after drinking 3 cups of coffee. It's a cocktail for anxiety. And that's what happened to me. I crashed physically and mentally. I probably slept like an average of 16 hours a day for a week, but I bet you the first 2 days I was close to 20 hours. I wasn't depressed or sick. I know what they both feel like. I was just that daggum tired. The case finished with a reversal. I helped set up the deal to get the cars, and then the guy that asked me for that deal, when the undercover truck drivers that were working for me on the case were picking up the vehicles, he pitched them for the 10-kilo deal. They said, yeah, we can get it, and they delivered it to him, and we took it down. Everybody pled guilty, and I don't know if the Taunton chapter ever came back, but it was pretty much defunct after that. Do I believe that white supremacy in the domestic terrorism realm of the FBI is probably the most violent and most dangerous? Yes, based on my experience, because the militia groups that I infiltrated and stuff, a lot of them are just pro-gun, and it goes back to what it's always been. If you come to take their guns, you're gonna have a Ruby Ridge or a Waco. In 2019, we started hearing about the base. So the base was an organization considered accelerationist. They want to accelerate the collapse of society. They don't believe there's a political solution to save the white race. They believe that society is going to collapse on its own or from man-made events, and they want to speed it up. We've got people out there that just call in and say, hey, I was on this Telegram channel, and there's this guy going by TMB, and man, he is saying some crazy stuff. So we start watching. And it's just spewing hate, and that's not illegal. You know, First Amendment protection in the United States. And we knew that pretty much the leader was a guy named Ronaldo Nazzaro. His online monikers were Roman Wolf and Norman Spear. And then I would kind of post, hit them, hey man, I like what you're saying. I train all the time, blah, blah, blah. And then they might like it back. Well, at the end of all their stuff, they're always recruiting. And it said, if you're interested, email thebase_1 at. So I answered it. And that started a series of questions through emails over probably a week or two. And then it got to the point to where, I mean, they're asking you your ethnicity, where you live, what's your background, what's your belief system. And I was instructed to download the app called Wire, kind of like a WhatsApp kind of thing. You can do calls on it too. And I think it was July of 2019, I did approximately 1 hour and 15 minutes of an interview. It was basically a panel. I think I remember hearing like 5 different voices, and some of them were really young. But Ronaldo was on there. And I get peppered with questions, and I'm answering them back. About 24 hours later, I got a ping on Wire, and it said, we'd like to have you. We'll hook you up with the cell leader closest to you. The base wanted 3 to 5 man cells all over the world, waiting for that call for the Boogaloo. And it turns out that Al-Qaeda, translated to English, is the base. Don't know if that was a coincidence or that's why Ronaldo chose it. I go down to Rome, Georgia, and I meet TMB, the Militant Buddhist, and Pestilence. Now listen, they're pretty squared away, because even though they're young, like 21 and 19, they told me where to go in the town. They told me where to park. They told me to take a picture in the town of Rome, Georgia. There's a Capitoline wolf. It's the Roman wolf statue. They wanted me to take a picture of that and send it to them. So I met the case team right before that. They want to put a tracking device on my truck because, again, we don't know who we're meeting technically. We don't know where we're going. They don't want to lose me. I don't want them to lose me. I go and meet them, and I'm pretty sure I'm going to get checked. I mean, if they're worth anything, they're going to check me out, you know? So they come up. I go, hey, man, how's it going? I go, at that point, I was White Warrior. I changed it to Pale Horse shortly thereafter once I was in the group. He's like, hey, man, put your phone on airplane mode. I need to check you. I said, okay, airplane mode. He pulls out this wand I'd never seen. To me, it looked like some kind of Geiger counter. I mean, it had all kinds of lights and buttons on it and a triangle card, and I'm like, and he's running it all over me, and I'm like, okay, cool. He starts going down the truck. He starts getting to the back of the truck, which is where they had installed a tracking device, and that thing starts going nuts. And I'm like, oh, it picks it up. And turns out that piece of equipment, that kid who doesn't have a job is holding is $500. It's not chump change. And it does detect everything. Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, any signal there is, it'll color code it, make a different sound for it. Right when he's getting to it, I was on a hill, and the power lines were pretty low right there. And Pestilence says, I wonder if it's the power lines. And he said, hang on. And he walks over. I'd already dropped my right leg back because I thought we were getting ready to throw down. I'm like, here we go. He walks over to the power lines, and that machine goes nuts. That detector goes nuts. He's like, man, all right. It's the power lines, follow us. So now I'm following him, and I'm like talking. I don't know who's watching me or what, so I've got like a cup. I got my phone, I'm driving with one hand or my knee, and I'm going, hey, can you guys hear me? And they're like, yeah, and I go, you need to shut the tractor off. They're like, well, we're afraid if we shut it off, we won't be able to cut it back on. And I'm like, well, I'm telling you, if you don't shut it off, it's probably gonna be the quickest undercover I've ever done. We pull into an abandoned concrete plant, is what it looked like to me. And it turns out that TMB, which stands for the Militant Buddhist, his real name is Luke Lane, and his dad had 100 acres in Rome, Georgia. And that's where we start training. And that's where I start meeting more members and identifying members of the base as they come down to train. So we're out there, and it's semi-automatic, AR-15s. And you got to remember, at this time in my career in life, I've been the lead tactic, the principal tactical instructor for the division forever. I've been a firearms instructor. I can't go out there and tell them what they're doing wrong. I can't go out there and make them better. That weekend, a 19-year-old kid led firearms and tactical training, and it was good. As I'm watching, I'm going, if they really wanted to go bad, they're probably going to get the drop on a lot of people, because they're doing magazine exchange drills, fast firing drills, speed, accuracy. No, I did not show my, what I consider above average marksmanship skills when I was shooting in front of them. I threw some rounds. I jacked up some magazine exchanges. Everybody was always building their kit, and by building your kit, I mean bulletproof vests, plate carriers, rifle repellent plates. They call it battle rattle, which would be duty belt if you're a cop. But you got your battle rattle, you got your pistols, you got everything. They wore Flecktarn camo, only Flecktarn because that's the German pattern, and they're white supremacists. In the domestic terrorism world, if you've got a base member who's predicated and you can open a case on them, but they live in California, well, California, LA's division is going to have to open that case. You got one here in New York, New York's going to have to open that case. So you got all these case teams, and it got to the point to where every Monday was a meeting between like the higher ups, and they blessed me enough to have me on the phone, which was good because I'm the ground level person that can be like, hey, this is what they're doing. And then every Tuesday was a meeting between all the United States attorneys, the assistant United States attorneys and locals. It got pretty big pretty fast. There's a couple of different ways that the base was recruiting. Online was huge, but the accelerationist groups seem to be really big into what they call stickering or postering or flyering. It would say, save your race, join the base. And there'd be a picture of a swastika and a dude with a military hat on kind of thing. And then it would have a QR code. So you scan that QR code and it takes you right to BitChute to a video, and it's a propaganda recruitment video that the base did. I was in tons of them. We did a lot of filming down in Rome, Georgia for the base. You know, it might be like a voiceover. It might show, it might be some strong heavy metal, black metal song, and it would just show us running and like fighting and shooting, and there's always like a magazine dump at the end where all of us on the line just emptying a mag. And the rule was every recruitment video had to be better than the last one because we want to be better. There's a very powerful recruitment video out there called The Lion of Europe, but you can't pull it up. I mean, you might be able to find it on like maybe a Telegram, but if you try to even put it on a Google Drive or anything, it gets flagged right away. And again, you got to remember, these guys call your mass murderers, your white supremacy mass murderers, they call them saints. They have a leaderboard. The leaderboard shows scores, and then it gets down and it says, what are you going to do to make the board? Saints, a leaderboard. What the hell's wrong with you? Generally, you're going to find somebody that's satanic in that group, and there's groups like Order of Nine Angles, and there's some other ones that are out there that are, I mean, the stuff they spew and write down is pretty horrific. I mean, like mutilation of children and a lot of satanic stuff. So fast forward to Halloween of 2019, we held a hate camp in Georgia. Probably about 13 base members from all over the country came. That Halloween night, they stole a ram from a local property. We went down and held a pagan ritual, which nothing against pagans. I got plenty of friends that are pagans. I mean, I got Viking stuff all over my arm, but they twist it just like Christian identity twists the Bible. So they kidnapped the goat, ram. We sacrificed it at a pagan ritual, drink its blood. A lot of the members do acid. The next day we did training, and then we had another little hate camp where built a fire down there, burnt Bibles, burnt American flags, screaming, F your Jewish God, you know, F America, F Jews, that kind of thing. But after that, I'd gained enough trust. We uncovered several murder plots that Luke wanted to bring me in on. They had found a couple that they believed were an Antifa couple in a couple of counties away, and they wanted to murder them. Luke had already started making a list of lefty journalists and reporters. And I'm like, so you actually want to start killing people who are in the news and on TV and stuff? And he goes, yeah. And I go, okay, well, it's a good thing we're going to take a run at this family. It'll be good practice. Meanwhile, the Baltimore, Delaware crew believed that the huge gun rights rally that was going to be happening in January of 2020, their idea was they thought this was going to be the set off of the Boogaloo. They had also started getting really crazy, talking about like breaking out saints from the prison, using that 6.5 Creedmoor with a $6,000 thermal scope to shoot cops at night. The big thing for us was try to make this timeline work and get all the evidence we needed to do an airtight case, which we had good ones going anyway, but you can always like, hey man, if we could find this out kind of thing. I flew to Baltimore on a Friday, drove up to Delaware, was with two of the base members there, sighted in their weapons, hung out all day, went and got something to eat, started having a few drinks. I flew to Atlanta. On Sunday, drove up to North Georgia, met with those base members to finalize the murder plot. I picked Luke up to take him to lunch. I feigned that my truck had issues and pulled over on the side of the road, got out to work on my truck, and then that's when another truck came over. I started talking to that person. But while that's happening, the SWAT team's coming over the hill in their Bearcat armored vehicle, and I jump in the truck, drive off. They take down Luke without incident. They pick up Pestilence at his house. So by Friday, it's starting to come out. And now I'm in the main chat. I haven't responded. I'm not answering anybody, but like, has anybody seen Pale Horse? Look at this, so-and-so and so-and-so. And it's going and it's going. And it's like, wait a minute. This report says there's a federal agent that infiltrated us. And they're like, who the hell's the Fed in here? And I'm just waiting and I'm waiting. And Nazaro figured it out. He goes, he attended every training, which could be a red flag. I should have picked on something like that. And as soon as he started saying that, I go, oh, he knows it's me. He's figured it out. And somewhere around like 5:15 on a Friday night, it was like, Roman Wolf has removed you. So I screenshotted that and sent it to all the case teams, and I put, and I'm out. And that was it. We took that one down. Your story has to be straight. We called it your legend, but your backstory. In other words, especially if I'm planning on going deep undercover, it may not work, but plan for it, because if I came in here with crappy backstopping and a name that I don't have anything associated, you know what I mean? If it's not real, if it doesn't look real and it's not real and tangible, you can't touch it, then all of a sudden something breaks and you can go deep undercover, you're screwed because you had a bad foundation. So know your stuff because you're going to get tested on it. Don't bluff, because if you got my luck, you're going to get called on it. Another big one that I saw and personally dealt with is you need to be able to see that a situation is deteriorating and be aware of it and get out if you got to. Or maybe everything was heating up and they're like, do it, and then you fake it, and then they're like, all right, everything's cool, man. Then now you know that the situation is back, For me personally, the way I was trained and the choices I made, I always stuck very close to who I am. I mean, it's still me. The jokes are the same. I just may or may not be married, may or may not have kids, may or may not have played college ball, may or may not be a musician and a singer. But, I mean, I probably ride motorcycles and lift weights. Is there a danger staying close to the truth? Again, case by case, subjective, because it could be. If I've got it way too close, like you can figure out that I'm married and my kids and stuff, but I generally felt better and more secure being close to who I am. There's a few rules for undercovers. It really goes for sources too. We can't be involved in an act of violence unless it's in self-defense, right? We can't lead and come up with the criminal idea. You know what I'm saying? That'd be an entrapment issue, right? Let me say this, operational security. You should never have anything personal that ties to you. I mean, of course I'm wearing my personal clothes. What if I went and picked up my coat from the cleaners and it says Scott Payne on it? And now I'm undercover and somebody grabs my jacket, and you know me as Tech Scott Calloway, and now you see Scott Payne in the jacket. So you gotta be totally clean. One of the things I would do to kind of get and roll for almost all my cases is I take the cross off. I take my cross off my necklace and I put a skull on. When I got home, I'd switch them back.
This might be tradecraft. Why would you ever alert your cover team if you were in trouble?
It's not tradecraft. It gets kind of funny because you go and you meet case teams and case agents all over the country, and if you've been in there and you're getting along in the tooth working undercovers and stuff, and it's always like, hey, what do you want? What's your code word? What's your safety word? And I'm like, how about this? If I yell help multiple times in a row, that's my code word. And I get it. Do you want to set them off or not? But I've been on, especially at the narc level, that I got so much experience. You say, okay, your physical signal is going to be, you're going to take your hat off, you're going to tap your head and put the hat back on. Person's never done it, their baseline's never done it, but for whatever reason, subconsciously it's in there and they don't even realize they do it. They're talking to the bad guy, they take their hat off, tap their head and put it back on. It wasn't time for the signal. They did it by accident. Now my go word, like we could come up with something like, if you want a word where, for me to let the team know I got the evidence, like for something quicker, maybe we're doing crimes against children, we're ordering escorts or whatever, and once I get that money in exchange for sex thing, I can come up with something, bathroom, something simple. But yeah, I always tried to keep it simple. People ask me a lot, what was it about undercover work that drew me? I've always loved connecting with people. I'm a people person, gift of gab kind of guy, but I will tell you this, I was always fascinated with undercover movies. I don't care if it was the cheesiest undercover movie, I love it. I was a cop first from 93 to 98, and for 3 years uniform patrol, 2 years vice and narcotics. So I was already certified to do undercover work in the state. And then I was applying with the FBI, and I got accepted in 1998. It's a selection process. Every field office has an undercover coordinator. If you have a seasoned undercover coordinator, they should be sitting you down, not giving you things that are going to be in the certification course, but talking to you about. I mean, if you came to me right now, I'd be like, okay, so what do you think undercover is? What are you picturing? Do you have a family? How long have y'all been married? You got kids? How old are your kids? Things like that. But again, the undercover program is completely voluntary. Even if you're certified, let's say you make it through the certification process, nobody can make you work undercover. They can make you be a case agent, but they can't make you do undercover. Then at some point, you're going to have to go do psychological testing. We have something called the safeguard unit. So you do psychological tests during the day, and you're going to sit down with a clinical psychologist. That may be an FBI agent that's taken a position at safeguard unit, or it could be somebody we've contracted in. And then you sit down with somebody like a Pistone, or like hopefully me later on in my career, somebody that's seasoned, to talk about things outside of that, like, man, how are you doing? How's your family doing? How's your division? Do they support you, or do you get a lot of grief for being in an undercover program? They might run you through a scenario or two, and then they're gonna do all their crunching back at headquarters and stuff, and they're gonna come down with 40 candidates. It's a 20-slot school, but they have 20 backups, just in case somebody falls out and you can slide another one in. I got certified in 2002 with the undercover certification. I think in 2003, I started role-playing at the school and eventually started teaching blocks at the school from 2003 till I retired, 2021. I've never seen a 100% graduation rate. That doesn't mean it's hazing. I mean, that to me, it gives the course credibility. You go through that process, and if you make it, it's 2 weeks, no days off, pretty big on sleep deprivation, because it really brings out the weaknesses. And we want to see that. As trainers, as undercovers, we want you to feel it if you're going through it, If you're gonna drink while you're undercover, which of course you can, and we want to see how you are. Do you lose your stuff and start wanting to fight everybody, or do you take all your clothes? I mean, things we'd want a red flag. New York City was my first office in the FBI out of the academy, and I was already doing some cameos here. And cameo is just like it sounds like in the movie thing. Like I hopped in a truck with a task force guy and we delivered 3,000 pounds of weed to a Jamaican gang. That's a cameo. I mean, we're delivering it, and then they're going to get it, and when they pop the box, everybody runs in and arrests them. Well, there's huge differences from when I started undercover to when I finished. Hopefully you get wiser. As far as me as a Greenville County narcotics officer, and the first time they rolled me down the street in a high trafficking drug area, and they gave me a $20 bill and told me, they said, all you got to do is pull down the corner, they're going to run up to your car, you just tell them you want a 20. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I'd bought and smoked weed prior to becoming a cop, but multiple times, but I didn't know about pulling in, to those areas. And I remember I rolled down there and I was so scared. The guy comes up and he's like, what you want? He's in my window, he's like, what you want? I cracked the window just enough to get a $20 bill through it. Like I'm trying to insert into the vending machine, I'm like, I want a I'm sure my voice was high because I was scared. I was like, I want a 20. I handed it through, slid it through. He's rolled down the window so I can hand it to you. He hands it to me. And it was probably a sliver of, I don't know, it could have been soap, who knows, I'm in New York, I'm assigned to New York, 9/11 happens. I come back as soon as you could fly commercially. And I helped cover leads running up and down West Side Highway and other highways. It was very surreal. But I saw a canvas for some undercover work in San Antonio. I put in for it. I got approved for 30 days. And once that happened, I became the primary, and they ended up transferring me. So I went to the border of Mexico for 6.5 years. And while I was there, as a case agent, I'm working cartel stuff and this, that, and the other. I can tell you transparently, I can't talk about the case because it was only like one of the only ones I did that was classified. It's been outed, but I don't want to be put on a box. Operation Poetic Justice was a public corruption undercover operation, and it took place, man, I want to say around like 2009 to 2011. The FBI is looking for systemic public corruption, which means more than just one person, generally speaking. And that was the reporting. And it had been reported for years and years, but nothing was found. And so I went in and tried to infiltrate, ingratiate, get to know people. I was relatively new to the Tennessee area that we were in. That was right when the big opioid crisis was happening. I went in there to try to give me something, some kind of something to be a little dirty. And I came in with purported stolen cigarettes, and those things went like hotcakes. Because out there in the rural Tennessee area, they had no problem getting their opioids, but man, they did not like paying that much money for cigarettes. So once that happened, I was like, oh, this is our end. And I started bringing in reportedly stolen cigarettes and selling them. And I was selling for $20 a carton. And they would give me like 2 Oxy 80s, which were going for $1 a milligram. So they just gave me $160 worth of drugs for the $20 carton. And then we started trying to wrap in some local law enforcement. And we did good. We got a constable who was dirty. We got a guy that was a reserve who became a cop while I was in that case. There are a few things a good cop hates worse than a bad cop. Don't tarnish the badge. I mean, dadgummit. We did get the constable on some dope charges. We got the cop, and he was still buying stolen cigarettes from me. I mean, I'd seen him do cocaine and stuff, which is just heart-wrenching when you're a cop. When you are blue, you took the same oath I did. What the hell's wrong with you, But we got him because he was buying what he thought were stolen iPads and stuff from me, TVs and stuff like that. But most of the charges were drugs, just from the pills and the cocaine. And we did like 51 indictments, but most of them went state. That was a 1.5-year case. I kind of broke my own rule, don't underestimate. Earlier I talked about you need to be able to tell when a situation's deteriorating and not stay in it if you can get out. Early on in the case, I'm at this trailer of Mike and Sherry, and there's other people there. And I guess I wasn't paying attention. All of a sudden, everybody's gone, and it's just me, Mike, and Sherry. And what I'd done is to validate my knowledge about drugs. I had picked up some cocaine the previous trip there, and I bitched about it, as a good drug dealer would do. I'm like, that wasn't worth it. It was stepped on because I knew the purity of it. I go, that wasn't nothing. Well, that was Mike's end. He goes, well, not my stuff. Try this. You're talking to a mountain man with no teeth in his head who drinks all day, does cocaine, and pills all day. Good guy that I could bond with when he was good, but when he was bad, he was bad. I mean, he would just go off. Hard to trust, hard to be around kind of thing. Violent. It's a chess game, right? You're always trying to think of the next move. I missed it. Now I'm sitting on a couch, leaning backwards. I got a red bone hound in my crotch, growling. Mean dog. Growling, teeth showing. I'm leaning back as far as I can on the couch. There's an open bag of cocaine in my face, and he's going, do it. Do it. If you're not a cop, do it. If I find out you the law, you a dead man. You hear me? He also had a short barrel, double barrel, 20 gauge shotgun with a hammer's cocked back sitting right next to him. What was going through my head immediately was, you idiot. Like, I can't believe I let my guard down and now I'm in this position. And I'm like, I'm not doing it. I mean, I've told you, man, I got heart issues. I used to do tons of it. I was a power lifter. I ain't doing that shit no more. Well, then he's like, well, Sherry's on the rescue squad. So-and-so on the squad's had heart attacks. He's got a bad heart. He did this morning. He's fine. And I'm thinking, well, that's great. But eventually what happened was he said, well, just taste it. Just taste it. And he wasn't backing away. Clearly the situation's deteriorating. I did a sleight of hand move, and I faked the taste test. I did not stick it in my mouth, and it was fine after that. Don't want to give away trade crafts, right? But you don't do dope. Now, if your life's in danger, yeah, I'll do the dope. And then I need to tell the case team, and I need to tell the United States Attorney's Office, and I need to get to an emergency room and let them know that I've ingested a drug to make sure I'm not going to OD, especially today. I mean, look at the day with fentanyl and everything. Hell, you can touch that and die. Let me give you an example. Narcotics street level. I'm a narc in the middle of the 90s, and our MO was kind of like, you can get 3 buys from a location, that was good enough for a search warrant. You know, wasn't always the exact, but roughly we get 3 buys out of a house, we hit it. So I'm going to buy from you, and I'm a user. I can probably come up with a reason not to do it in front of you 2 or 3 times. But can I come up with a reason not to do it for 2 months? No. It's all your story, and it's got to be believable, and you got to believe it, and you got to sell it. Myrtle Beach happened because I did see a canvas. There was a young man who had already been to prison. He was a felon. He shows up at a Ku Klux Klan rally, but he is so radical that he is scaring the white supremacists. This guy was attracting attention because he was so radical and wanting to hurt people, and it got turned over to us. I come in as, it's a role I like to call closer. I don't know if there's a correct term for it, but to me a closer is this. You want to do something, you want to blow something up, I'm the guy that can get you the bomb. I'm the guy that can get you the gun. I'm a closer. In this case, Benji McDowell was his name, lived about 45 minutes outside of Myrtle Beach in Conway. So I meet Benji. We go down to Myrtle Beach, meet in the hotel room and talk. What are you really planning on doing? We saw what you posted. We've seen what you've said, but do you have the means to do it? How many steps have you taken to make it happen, if any? Those are things we're trying to find out. And if any kind of murder or harm to innocent people is going to happen, we got to stop it. So basically, he just kept saying, I got the heart, I got the heart, I got the heart. I just don't know how to do it. I need some guidance. Well, I'm not going to guide you on how to shoot the synagogue. He'd already looked at a synagogue. He knew that they were having a Saturday family day. And I did point out to him, hopefully, and this kind of slow things down, because he wanted to do it in the county he'd been arrested at. And everybody knows he's a felon. So I was like, I talk like a criminal does. I'm like, hey, you know, aren't you on the radar here? You know, oh yeah, you know. So day ends, I'm sitting at the bar at the hotel because I fly out the next morning. I've already turned in my recording equipment, my undercover phone rings. It's Benji. He goes, I like what you were saying, and you're right, I am too known here. I'm gonna find another spot a little further away. In other words, another target, another synagogue or whatever, a little further away. But until then, you think you could hook me up with a 40? I didn't even miss a beat. I said, yeah, man, what do you need? Glock, Sig, what do you want? He goes, I like a Glock. All right. He tells me how many rounds he wants. He tells me he wants a hollow point. So if you're a felon, you can't have a weapon. I was doing some more calls, coming up with a gun, and then he sped things up because he said, hey, man, I'm leaving. I'm moving. He was staying with his mom. And we were like, where are you going? He said Alabama, but I'm like, the case team's like, dude, we've got everything written up. We can't let this dude hit the road and lose him possibly, or him hurt somebody, number one. And I drove through the night or whatever to Myrtle Beach. And so then we go and pick him up, and I sell him a gun at the gun he requested at a decent price. He wanted to be safe. You know, I gave him a gun. The gun was inoperable. And then we were both arrested by the case team. The case team came in, and I remember getting my head slammed off the side of the SUV I had rented. So like they come rushing in, and I'm looking at Benji, and I'm like, be cool, don't say nothing. And they grab us, and they get him. And actually, one of the cops in Myrtle Beach used to be NYPD. So it's total New York accent. And you know, because we connected right off when we met. I'm like, I was in New York. He's like, oh man, I go, you know. So he's the one that slams me. And then he goes, with his New York accent, your friends from New York say hello, you know, something like that. And I was like, what? When did the ad-libbing come in? What was that? But I will tell you, I said, you guys need me to stick around, whatever. They go, no, we got it, Scott, thanks. As I'm driving back to Tennessee, they called me shortly. I mean, probably within an hour. And they said, listen, he confessed to everything. So I congratulated the case team. Because, see, that was going on while the bowl haircut Charleston church shooter was in trial. And he represented himself in trial. When you teach tactics, we never name the shooters' names because that's what they want. I'll name the victims all day long. I'm not giving them any more publicity, right? Mass murders. But Benji told me, when he was explaining what he goes, I want to do something. And he goes, I want to do something in the spirit of Dylan Roof, but on a grander scale. So, don't know how many lives we saved that day, but we saved them. So the true definition of undercover work is you are forming relationships that you are potentially going to betray. And you need to figure out and rationalize in your mind how you can do that without it having an adverse impact on your psyche. It's not always easy, at least it wasn't for me. Like that Scott Town guy, I bonded really, really tight with Scott, even to the point to where, you know, I'm rocking his newborn daughter at his house. We finished each other's sentences, loved working out, all that stuff. But at the end of the day, if you're breaking the law, I mean, there's going to be that point. Hopefully the case agent sits down with you and says, you're an adult, made a decision to break the law, you got caught, let's start here. Hopefully that's what happened. But I will tell you that the last words I spoke to Scott, he didn't know I was FBI. He called me. I was actually in Nevada helping putting on undercover training. And I got back, I always kept my undercover phones on. He's like, hey, I just heard your 2 truck drivers and Big Timmy got arrested. And I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, he goes, I just wanted to let you know. And I said, well, you know, they do things on the side. He said, hey, I'm gonna get up and take a shower. I'm gonna find out what's going on, I'm gonna call you back. And I said, okay. His last words were to me, beep, I love you, brother. And I went, I love you too. And I hung up. And probably within 45 minutes, the SWAT team was hitting his house. That's the last time we spoke. I know he's out now. I would talk to him. He might punch me. I don't know. It might be a throwdown. we might finally have the fight we always wondered about, you know? But I don't hate the guy, you know? He made some decisions. Hopefully he's doing well. That's what I hope. I hope he's doing great. I love a success story.
Have you ever witnessed somebody hearing that you were undercover for the first time, like in person? Have you ever seen that?
Yes, plenty of times. One of the ones that's usually funny is you arrest them, and maybe the case team's talking. It doesn't have to go like this, but maybe the case team's talking to them. Now I'm in another room listening, right? And they're lying to the case team and lying and lying and lying. And no, I didn't do this. No, nothing. And then you walk out and you say, hey, how's it going? And they go, hey, Scott, how is it? And I go, hey, just so we're clear, boom, whip out your creds. Special Agent Scott Payne with the FBI. This is what you usually get. Oh, I knew it. I'm sorry, what? I knew you were undercover. I'm getting more country accent because the one guy I'm thinking of, this is what he said. He goes, I mimic and mirror, I can't help it. He goes, oh hell, I knew you was an undercover. And I went, you did? He said, yeah. And I said, and you continued to sell me cocaine for 1.5 years? And he's like, well, hell, I like you. I always like to have more than one recorder because there's a chance something can go wrong. You want it to be concealed comfortably, especially if you're deep undercover. These are my personal opinions. And I would always have a backup because, you know, video and audio eats up a lot of memory. So you might just be spot checking. But picture now we're at trial and you're the defense attorney and you say, well, how come you only recorded that 5 minutes? Why can't we see everything else that was going on? Were you doing something? It's just about creating doubt in a jury's mind. And the undercover technique gets such great evidence. It's usually so overwhelming that the only thing a defense team can do is they can try to claim entrapment, which shouldn't be an issue if you're a decent undercover, because that's like 101. We know we can't entrap. I can't put the words in your mouth. That's wrong. They can argue entrapment, or they try to make you look like a piece of trash on the stand. That's it. Because, I mean, the evidence is like there. Well, that's your client saying it and doing it. But I always did backups. I've had multiple devices on me, and then 3 days later, I go to listen to the recordings and they all crap the bed. And I would document in there. I would say it should be noted that every piece of equipment died, malfunctioned. I wouldn't say crap the bed in the 302, but yeah, it malfunctioned. I have never had to testify in an FBI undercover case. As I said earlier, the evidence is so overwhelming. Now, as a case agent, I have, but for me as a law enforcement officer, I took an oath to the entire Constitution, not just one amendment or two, all of it. And if you're breaking the law, don't be mad at law enforcement. We're just enforcing the law. You got caught. I'm not saying you're a bad person. I'm not saying what you did is wrong. I'm saying you're an adult and you made a choice. You chose this and you got caught and it's illegal. This is the problem with the FBI. You have a headquarters level that's disconnected from the field level. But at the end of the day, we're a law enforcement agency and we need to enforce the law. When Mueller came in, it seemed like we got further away from working cases. They started bringing people into the FBI who had zero law enforcement experience whatsoever and giving them the top 3 or 4 positions of the FBI. You got somebody from Goldman Sachs coming into the FBI at the top. What do you know about national security and law enforcement? My personal opinion is, yeah, I think changes need to be made. I came in under Louis Freeh, and I truly believe that Louis was the last real director the FBI had. But he was also an agent himself and an assistant United States attorney. I know that's going to be like really hard to find somebody with those qualifications to come in to be the director. And when Mueller came in, the FBI, he wanted to push the FBI into more of an intelligence agency, kind of like CIA, taking almost like a broken model from CIA and applying that to the FBI. The bottom line is case agents is what should be important. Everything else is a collateral duty. You want to try out for SWAT? You want to be a SWAT operator? Cool, try out. You want to be a firearms instructor, tactical instructor, active shooter instructor, undercover coordinator, source handler, evidence response team? All those are collateral duties. You should be an investigator first. If you're willing to stay in D.C. and live in D.C. or in that area and stay in the J. Edgar Hoover building, you can make rank. You just keep staying and you keep moving up, but then unfortunately, you end up with somebody with a very high position who has hardly any experience working cases. And you end up with a McCabe, Peter Stroke, Lisa Page situation, and they do wrong things because they did not know what to do, because they did not work cases. I retired June of 2021. After the base case, I'm sitting in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, putting on training for online covert employees that do domestic terrorism cases. And I just remember sitting there in Arizona and thinking, I'm completely satisfied with my career. I still travel around speaking for conferences. It could be civilian groups, it could be citizens academies. So my book is called Codename Pale Horse, and the subtitle is How I Infiltrated America's Nazis. You learn from each case how my skills got sharpened more and more. How do I balance the personal life and professional life? Mine overlap. They kind of overlap. That's just the way I work and my family works. I've shared a lot with my wife. Obviously, if it's classified, I can't, but the way my marriage and family works, it's not like that typical military mold where you can disappear for 3 months and say, I can't tell you what I'm doing, but I love you, and that doesn't work. Not in mine. I could be gone for about 2 weeks, and after that, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to bring the bad stuff home. There's a whole bunch of training for years and years and years in law enforcement. Look, man, they got that imaginary bush, or you got a bush outside. When you step out of your car and you're getting ready to walk into your house to the family that's been waiting on you all day and misses you, take all that from your job and set it on that bush. Go inside, be with your family, be a husband, be a father, and on your way back to work, pick it up off the bush. Now, I'm going to tell you something very personal. In the Outlaws case, when I was in the basement, that night on the way home, I had bought my wife, everybody knows them as burner phones now. So I bought her that phone, and I'd call her no matter what time it was. We were young in our marriage, pretty young, you know, within 10 years at that point. And I would call her. I don't care if it was 5 in the morning, 7 in the morning, I'm finishing up. I'd be like, hey, babe, I'm on my way back to the hotel. I just wanted you to know everything's good. I'll call you when I wake up. Sometimes she'd talk to me for a while. Sometimes she'd just say, okay, love, you can go back to bed. That night when I called her, the first thing she said was, are you okay? And I said, yeah, why? And she said, I was driving tonight with the girls in McAllen, and she said, I got this overwhelming feeling. And she said, I pulled over on the side of the road and I started praying for you. So I matched up the time as when I was in the basement.
Hi, I'm a producer on Authorized account. If you enjoyed this video, then please subscribe and comment with more topics that you'd like us to cover in this series.